Hey everybody, Charles for HumbleMechanic.com, back today with episode 48 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. Today I'm going to be taking your questions that you sent to me via email to charles@HumbleMechanic.com and put question for Charles in the subject line so I know what your email is about. Before we get into the show, one quick cool thing. You may remember a few months ago that I picked up that black Cabrio with some engine issues and, not a ton of stuff wrong with it, but some pricey things to fix. Well, I got something really cool coming out down the road with that. The boys in Apex Tuning and I are going to do something really special with it, so stay tuned. Ton more coming down the road, but just wanted to throw that out there. There is something really cool that's going to be happening with that Cabrio, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's get into your questions. First one comes from Daniel from Romania, which is so cool that someone from Romania is sending me a question about a Volkswagen. So that's really, really awesome. Thank you, Daniel, for that. He's got a Volkswagen Passat with a DSG. It's a 2-liter TDI with 124,000 kilometers. He said, all is good, but the flywheel makes noise at cold start. After a few minutes of driving, it gets quiet. He also has clunky downshifts from 3 to 2 and sometimes from 5 to 4, and also some other internal noise, and he's worried about the clutch packs. Basically what he wants to know is it worth to change the clutch pack? He'll be doing the flywheel, and would it be wise to do it all at one time? Before I change the clutch packs, I'd probably run the basic settings, which is basic settings 61 and 60 if you have VAGCOM, or take it to a Volkswagen repair place and have them do it. Before I replace the clutch packs, I would see if that did anything. As far as overlapping that repair, absolutely do it that way. If you're going to replace the flywheel, you have to take the transmission out. So you also have to take the transmission out to do the clutch pack. Makes sense to do it all at once. The clutch pack will take you maybe another 30 minutes after you got the transmission out. So if you're going to do the flywheel, I would go ahead and do it at that time as well. I'm not 100% sure if that's what's going on with the DSG, but like I've said before, there's really only a few repairs: mechatronics unit, clutch pack, or a transmission. So I would have the basic settings done first before you did any kind of replacement on it. But great question, Daniel. Hey, out there in Romania, so thank you for that. All right, next up comes from D. He was wondering my thoughts on using oil additives in a 2-liter TSI. The last 3 cars he's owned have been naturally aspirated and has always used BSG oil additive in 44K for the life of cars. He uses a fuel treatment on the TSI but never used any oil treatments. I would probably recommend those same BG products. I use the 44K and the MOA, the motor oil additive, in both of my cars. BG has some really good chemicals, and I'm very skeptical about the mechanic in a can type stuff, but BG does make a good product. Their CRP or CPR, compression restorer, so I guess it would be CRP, works really well. I've seen about a 6% compression increase in my Passat. I also did it on a Tiguan to see if it would alleviate any misfire issues. Didn't really, solve the issues, but it did see about a 5% increase in compression before and after the treatment. So, yeah, keep on rocking, man. I like the BG stuff. I think it works well. We use it at the dealership. I put it in both of my cars. So, yeah, keep on rocking the BG. It's good stuff. All right, next up comes from Steve. He has a 2.0 TSI motor that has recently begun to show signs of the infamous rattling noise associated with a bad chain tensioner. Even more popular failing water pump. He's already scheduled to have the water pump replaced, but can the tensioner be checked easy when replacing the pump? Or does it require more dissection of the engine? Regarding the tensioner, I've heard VW released a newer version of the tensioner for the 2012 years and up. His is a 2011. In the event the tensioner needs to be replaced, is it safe to assume that all the parts will last the duration of the car's life? It's never safe to assume that, because you can always have a failure of any part at any time, no matter what part it is, no matter what car it is. Plain and simple, a part can always fail anytime throughout its life. So he's looking to do either the factory replacement or the HS Tuning's chain tensioner as a more reliable replacement. He's by no means a mechanic, but he's concerned about maintaining the health and longevity of his GTI. So regarding the tensioner, it's not really something you can just check. You can pull a small plug and actually back the tension off the chain and sort of look at it that way. Usually if it's making noise, it's probably at its failure point. Volkswagen has updated that tensioner. We've had a lot better performance with the tensioner. I will say that in no way, shape, or form does it overlap with the water pump. In order to do the chain tensioner, you're pulling things off what would be the passenger side of the engine, which technically is the front of the engine, and the water pumps on the front of the vehicle side of the engine. So they don't really overlap. I don't have any experience with HS Tuning's chain tensioner kit, so I can't really recommend it. I will say I don't think I've seen any failures of the new style tensioner versus the old style tensioner, where I've seen several. You know, my initial thing is, if I'm gonna replace that tensioner, I'm gonna do the tensioner, I'm gonna look at the chains, I'm gonna look at the guides, I'm gonna inspect everything. I'm gonna probably replace the timing cover. Most of the time they get a little bit tweaked, and if you don't get them perfectly flush, they will leak, no matter how much sealant I've seen guys put on it to try and overcome that. So plan on replacing at least the lower cover as well. And you know, the rest of it's based on the health of the chains, and if they're in good repair, I would probably just put a tensioner in it and let it go. Next one up, what do you think about buying a VW Golf or Jetta for about $5,000? Will a $5,000 car have some issues? If yes, what should I avoid? How to find a good value for the price. All right, so $5,000 is kind of the cutoff line where I would definitely have it inspected by a professional. Take it to the dealer, take it to a Volkswagen place. You know, don't just run it to Meineke and have them inspect it. Take it to somewhere that really does know Volkswagens in and out. At $5,000, you could probably expect some things wrong with the car. You know, at this point, you're probably looking at maybe a 6, 7, 8-year-old car. There's gonna probably be issues. You know, it might be something simple like it needs tires, or something major. I don't know. You know, every car has its own little gremlins. So I would look for something that has been well maintained, maybe has the maintenance records, one that doesn't have any major engine or transmission issues. You know, if you got to put tires on a car, so what? If you got to put brakes on a car, so what? If you got to put a transmission in a car, that's big time. And that could easily exceed the $5,000 that you're going to spend on the vehicle anyway. So at $5,000, take it in, get it inspected, and you know, pay the $100. It'll be well worth the $100. And that's pretty much what I tell anyone when they ask me about buying a used car, what they should look for. You know, you could run a Carfax and look at the whole vehicle history. A lot of places don't report to Carfax, so you may not get 100% of the information, but you'll get a lot, and that'll help. You'll know where it's been registered and what states and whatnot. You know, if you're buying a $2,000 car, if it runs, it's probably worth it. If you're buying a $5,000 car, especially if you're on a budget, pay the $100, get someone that knows what they're looking at to look at it, and you'll either get confirmation that you're getting a good value. You'll also get a write-up of everything that's wrong with it, so you'll know what to expect, or they'll tell you don't buy this car and you can keep looking. So great question, thank you for that. All right, hey Charles, love the show. I'm kind of an old school VW guy, got a big power air-cooled 74 Beetle and an 85 Westphalia with a Subaru engine swap, which is ultra cool, by the way. Could you explain the different stages of tuning? When someone says stage 1 or 2 tune, what exactly is changing? Timing, air fuel, throttle position sensor mapping. Thanks, Drew. So Drew, I hopped up on Unitronic's site. They seem to have the best explanation of what's going on with their tune. They don't tell you specifically what's happening. I would imagine if you called APR or you called Unitronic, they would explain to you specifically what they're changing in the tune. But for example, stage 1 is optimized to run on 91 octane, changes the rev limiter to 7,000, removes the speed governor, improves fuel economy. So basically stage 1 is an ECM tune that's sort of just to wake the car up a little bit. A lot of times you can run a stock vehicle with just a tune, no exhaust, no intake. And that takes, this is on the Mark 6 TSI GTI, that takes it from 200 horsepower, 207 foot-pounds of torque, to 245 and 280, and it's a blast to drive. I love driving these with this stage 1 tune. When we bump up to stage 2, very similar. It's actually optimized to run on 93 octane, you know, raises the rev limiter, does change ignition timing for higher octane fuel. It's meant to run with a higher flow cat. It is also calibrated for an upgraded exhaust. You'll also need to upgrade to a 3-inch downpipe, as well as a cold air. They recommend the cold air intake system. So now we're starting to, not only are we tuning the ECM, but we're starting to bolt on hard parts to allow more airflow in and out of the engine, basically. That takes it to 280 horsepower and 325 foot-pounds of torque. When we move up to stage 2 plus, which takes it to 340 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque. Now we're getting into big time. Now we're getting into new turbo, new intercoolers recommended. Again, cold air intake, downpipe, full exhaust. So now we're putting on big time hard parts when we get turbo upgrades. When we jump up to stage 3, that's the big boy. That's kind of the big package. That's a turbo upgrade. That is a fuel system upgrade. That's an intake upgrade, an exhaust upgrade, an intercooler upgrade. And for over 400 horsepower, you're looking at internal engine parts. So what a cool upgrade, but that takes it as high as you want to go. Basically, as much money as you want to spend is how far it takes it. So, you know, the specifics of the timing and the mapping and the fuel is going to be different depending on what tuning company you use. Everybody does kind of their own thing. I'm sure they're all very similar as far as specifically how they're mapping fuel, how they're mapping air, and what they're changing. But if you have a company specifically that you're looking at their tune, give them a call and ask them, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. Most of the guys that I've met from these tuning companies are very, very cool and very happy to share with what they got going on. And man, that's a lot of horsepower out of a GTI. So very cool, man. Thank you for that question. And out of all the tuning companies that I looked at, Unitronic actually goes into the most detail about what their tune is and what it means. And you know, they got DSG upgrades, they got hard part upgrades, all kinds of stuff. So I don't really prefer one over the other. I think most of them do a pretty good job. It's just Unitronic seem to have the best information on their website. I'll put a link to Unitronic if you want to check out what I was just looking at there. All right, last one comes from Lee. I could be becoming a VW tech soon. What are some specific questions I should ask the brand or business regarding VW with the service manager? Thanks. All right, so this won't be Volkswagen specific, but I'll give you some VW specific things to ask about. First thing you want to ask about is the fixed right first time rate. Fixed right first time is kind of how technicians in a shop are gauged on fixing a car right the first time. For example, right now I think my dealer's in the high 90s. We've been low, we've been high, we've been at 100, we've been at 85. You know, it all really depends. It doesn't tell the full story, but it gives the overall picture. I would ask them also what their CSI or CES rate is, and that's like their overall customer satisfaction based on surveys. I would ask them how many ROs they do, a day, a week, a month. A week is probably the one I would want to know the most about. Day to day can shuffle around, but week should give you a good idea of how the dealership is getting workflow through. Ask them what the average hours per RO is. So if your average hours per RO is low, that means cars are coming in for a light bulb and only a light bulb and going out the door. If it's high, like really high, like over 3, you have to wonder, are they selling customers things they don't need? Or are they only doing big jobs and not doing any small jobs? Somewhere in the 2.5 is pretty damn good. Ask them how work is distributed, whether it's done by the shop foreman, by service advisors, and how the workflow process goes. That'll be really important. If you're brand new, you need to ask them who your mentor is going to be and get an idea of who they are and what they're about and what they're going to put into you for training. Ask them how many times a year you're going to be going to class for instructor-led training. That's going to be really important. You know, if your goal is to be a master certified tech and they're only going to send you once a year, it's going to take a long, long time to get there. But if they're going to send you 3 or 4 times a year, that's incredible and you'll get there really quick. You know, when it comes to these kind of questions, especially in an interview, you get kind of caught up in the money end of it, and that's very important. I'm not going to mix words about it. The paycheck is why we get up and go to work. If we didn't get a paycheck, very, very few of us would get up and go to work every day. So it's important, but it's not the only thing to worry about. All those things that I said to ask, make sure you're asking questions like that. You want to get a feel for the shop. You want to get an understanding of the dynamic of it, how it works, who you'll be working with, who you will be working next to specifically, who your mentor is going to be, who do you go to for help, and how the flow of work goes in your dealership. That's all really important. It can take a dealership that's nice, new, millions of dollars of special tools, all the fanciest equipment, and bring them up a level or drop them way down, where a small dealership that maybe doesn't have all the special tools but really knocks it out of the park and takes care of their customers, that'll give them the advantage. So make sure you're asking good questions like that so you can really understand the dynamic of the dealership and how they're performing, not just how much money you're gonna make. So great question, Lee. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you have any questions or comments about today's show, throw it down in the comments section. Hey, if you like the video, throw it a thumbs up on YouTube. Don't forget you can subscribe on YouTube or on the blog at humblemechanic.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the blog, humblemechanic.com, and obviously on YouTube. If you have a question for a show like this, shoot me an email, charles@humblemechanic.com. Put question for Charles in the subject so I know what your email's about. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Got water.